Applique is the sewer's version of Tell Me a Story. We're going to talk about the basics of machine applique today on the beautiful Baby Lock Presto 2. Hi, I'm Cathy, and this is Sewing Tech Talk. So we have a giveaway for today's video. We have this great pack of Madeira thread, and this is the thread you'll be using for machine applique. In fact, I'm going to use some of the exact colors in one of my projects today. So you can win this. Every time you like, share, or comment, you're entered for a chance to win this great pack of threads. So good luck. Machine applique truly tells a story, and today we're going to be stitching on the Baby Lock Presto 2, and because it's an electronic machine, it gives us lots of options to get a great machine applique. So I have some techniques that help you turn corners and all that, but let's get through the supplies and get everything prepared before we can get to the machine. Now you have a handout today. Go to the description, and it's usually highlighted in blue, and click on that and it'll take you where you can download my machine applique handout. In that handout, I've given you gone through the instructions for what I'm going to talk about today, and I give you two projects. I have the image where you can do a snowman, and the snowman is just circles. It's just circles, but I give you the nose and his little arm. Of course, you can do your own thing too. That's more of a beginner project. I also drew a unicorn so that if you want to play with a few more advanced techniques and hone your skills, this unicorn has all kinds of different nooks and crannies for you to get really good with machine applique. So both of those are there. So what are the materials that we need? Well, of course, we're going to need some thread. Now, we're going to be using a satin stitch around the edge of our machine applique to hold it down. You can also use decorative stitches as well. So machine embroidery thread works great. I use a machine embroidery thread, embroidery bobbin, because it's nice and thin. It works great. These stitches are kind of just long, skinny little embroideries. Now you're going to need to have some, to create the fusible, we're going to do a fusible and we're going to do a mock hand stitch, two different types of applique. You're going to need a product that's going to make your fabric into a fusible fabric. So here's the fabric I'm going to use for my unicorns. Here's the first unicorn that I went ahead and stitched on down, and I need to turn this fabric into a fusible product. So I'm going to use Floriani Applique Wonder. What it is, it's a fusible product that's double-sided fusible, but it has a paper side. That's what you draw your image on. You roughly cut it out, fuse it to the back of your fabric. When you peel off the paper, it's sticky. So you can stick it and position it wherever you want on your background, and then you can iron it down. So it's repositionable and a permanent fusible as well. So it's a great product. Now, what you're going to also need is the back of the background needs to be stabilized because, like I said, these are little long, skinny little embroideries, and you want to have some stabilization on the back of your background fabric. And I've used here a Floriani fusible medium tearaway, and I like it because it holds everything nice and flat. I can stitch anywhere on this project and I'm good to go. When I'm done, I can tear it away. So that's a good option. Now there's another option that you can use, and it's a no-show mesh. So this no-show mesh is, you can get it fusible or not fusible. I prefer the fusible because this is what I'm going to use to do my handwork applique as well. So this is like a 2-for-1 product. I can use it for the background of my regular fusible applique, but I can also use it for that hand stitch. So if you want to play with both, this is a good option to get. Now let's talk about getting the design to the back to make my patch into an iron-on patch. So what I'm going to do is I need to trace this image onto that Applique Wonder, and I need to reverse the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Daylight light box. I love this light box because it's super bright, it's super thin, and you can actually also get it with an overlay so that you have like a grid that you can even cut on. So here's the regular image right here. I need to reverse it. So that means I need to go to the back of it all I do is turn it upside down, and then I take something and I'm going to trace it onto the paper side of that applique wonder. Now, I nearly only need to trace the outside edge of it. I've done some inside lines. I'm going to put those on later when I do after I fuse it. I can come in, use my light box again, and take like a pencil, and I can draw these onto my fabric so I can do that extra little stitching on the top. So all you do is you come in, you take your device, you draw where you need to be. Now, I'm going to put the horn with a separate fabric. So I'm going to come in just a little bit, so there's a little bit of underlay under the bottom of that. And I'm going to move my applique wonder, and I'm going to trace separately that little horn. Now, the cool thing about the paper side also is if you want to make little notes on the back of it, this is unicorn number 2. So if I had both of them going on at the same time, I know one is the one and one is the other. I'm just going to move it over, and now I'm going to trace his little horn. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. All the little parts and pieces, and I can trace everything that I need to and use all the different parts. If I want to do my snowman, I can trace all those parts on here as well. So this product goes quite a long way. So what I'm going to do is, after I get that, I'm going to come in with my scissors and I'm going to roughly cut out these pieces. I want to be able to cut them out precisely after I fuse it down to the fabric. So there's my little piece. I'm going to find my little piece of fabric. And where'd my little fabric go? This is not the horn, but it's what I can show you. Put it down here, and I'm going to put it down to the wrong side. Press it down, not iron it, but press it down. And what's going to happen is this is going to cool down. I'm going to cut it out precisely, peel off that paper, and I have a repositional fusible applique. When I'm happy with the placement, I fuse it on down. So that's how you prepare your pieces. Pretty simple. I do all that kind of grunt work before I go up to my machine. Now, let me quickly show you how I do the mock hand stitched applique. So I'm going to use that same no-show mesh product. I'm going to use the same light box. I'm going to do the same reversed image. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace it now onto this no-show mesh. I'm going to trace it on the side that's not fusible because I want the fusible to land out. So I'm going to trace it on there, and then I'm going to roughly cut that out and put it on my fabric piece that I want to turn into an applique. I'm going to stitch along this line that I drew, and I've already done that on this piece, and then cut a slit in the back so that I can turn this right side out. Now this mesh, what it's going to do is it's going to form the perfect turned under edge. So I can control that. Everything's going to be turned under, and I'm going to set up the machine to do a delicate little stitch along the edge. It's going to look like I sat and hand stitched forever, which is pretty amazing. Now to turn it right side out, I simply pop it open like a pillow. I do a cut in the back, and I'm actually going to trim up these little tips here just a little bit so I get a good turn. I'm going to take my little turning device and turn it right side out. And now I have a piece, I'm going to work the edges, I have a piece that I can hand stitch down. So there you go. So you can see, I'm going to put it on the light box, you can see that it's turned that edge under. Yeah, I'm going to have to work my corners, but now that's going to turn into a hand look applique, which is pretty mighty cool. Now this has been done in the past with interfacing, and I've tried it that way. I was not very successful with that because the interfacing seemed to split with me and it wasn't very strong. So I do like this fusible no-show mesh. It's a little bit more cooperative for me. Okay, so there we go. So we have our thread, we have our pieces prepared. I'm going to finish doing, I'm going to iron on my, my unicorn to the back of my fabric, and then I'm going to meet you at the Presto 2. What we're going to do, we're going to make a cool satin stitch. We're going to talk about decorative stitches just a little bit. We're going to turn that corner, and we're going to look like we hand sewed. So I'm going to go to the iron, and then I'll meet you at the Presto 2. So here we are at the Presto 2. We're going to do some basic machine applique, and let's set up the machine first. So I have, the machine comes with a J foot and what's called an in foot. And the in foot is the foot you use for like decorative stitches. We're going to take a basic zigzag stitch and change it into a decorative stitch. We're going to change it into a satin stitch by decreasing the stitch length so that it lays right next to each other. So the standard J foot is great. When you choose a zigzag, it's going to show you that foot. But on the bottom of the in foot is a little groove that helps those stitches, that the thread stacks up and it helps them pass through. Also, Baby Lock is so awesome. What they've done is this depth of this foot is a teeny little bit higher, and it kind of fools the machine to taking that top thread around to the back. So your tension's a little bit uneven because that's what you want in machine applique. You don't want any of that bobbin thread to accidentally show. Now another foot that's optional for this machine, but I really like, is the open toe foot. It is just like the in foot with that groove underneath, but it has a big open space so I can see where I'm stitching. It's great for you to see in the video, but I also like it to use it for machine applique. It's my foot of choice for that. It's an optional foot, but it's a great foot. So let's snap that foot on and put these aside. And I've already threaded up the machine with the off-white embroidery thread. There we go, we got it all threaded up. And I put the embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin. Now let's get started with that satin stitch. Now here's my little snowman. I'm just going to go around his head. Now I'm going to change this zigzag stitch to a satin stitch by decreasing the stitch length. The length that you decrease it to depends on the thickness of your thread. All that information is in your handout. So I've taken this, I'm going to use a 3.5 millimeter wide zigzag, and I've shortened the stitch length to 0.5. That works well for me. Now, when I stitch, the one thing when I'm going around a curve that is kind of important is, let me get my little pointer, is I want the outside swing of the needle to just clear the outside edge of that fusible applique. And I want the inside swing to come to an imaginary point in the middle. So my stitches radiate out as they go around. Now that means I'm going to want to kind of adjust the fabric as I go. So I have needle down on the Presto 2 engaged, which means when I take my foot off the presser, I take my foot off the gas, the needle's going to stay in the down position. And I'm going to want that to be on the outside edge of the curve so that I can adjust. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's going to come down on that outside edge. I'm going to kind of position it. Let me come over here on the dark so that you can see. And let's stitch. Oops, I gotta You got to attach your presser foot to make it go. Well, you don't have to, but I want to. Nothing like being prepared. Okay, now we're going to press on the foot pedal and we're going to make it go. And we're going to go around this circle. Now, as I stitch, let me make it go a little bit faster. As I stitch, I'm turning the work around. And I want to hit just outside. Notice how the part in the front is kind of just coming towards me, and I'm gently turning it as I go. Now if I have to adjust it, if there's a radical curve that I have to go around, I'm not going to adjust it with the needle on the left side. I want it to be on the right side. I'm going to touch my needle up and needle down button, and that needle's going to come down exactly where I want it to go. I can lift my presser foot and I can adjust. Some of the radical curves, you might have to stop and do that as you go. So here I go around my snowman. This takes a little bit of practice. And if I had one of those larger extension tables for this machine, it would really be helpful to lay all my work absolutely flat. Oops, I want it up and I want it on the very outside edge. Now I can adjust and I continue to go around my little snowman guy. Now, when I go around my little snowman head guy, he's going to be pretty much finished. But I have my little carrot nose I'm going to put on. After I finish this circle, I'm going to go to my iron, take the paper off the back of the nose, and stitch and iron it in place before I stitch it down. So let's finish up this circle. Use my scissor key, and I've stitched my circle down. Now, here's my nose. Remember, this is Applique Wonder, so it's fusible on the back, but it also has that sticky part. So I'm going to take this off, come on in, stick down my nose, and what I want to do is I want to show you how I do a point. So let's change to that orange thread. This is the thread from the Madeira 18 thread pack, and I think the color is going to work just right. Now I have a couple options when I want to stitch around my little nose. I like to, when I come to the point out to here, I like to decrease the stitch length. I have two options for that. I can come into the control panel of the machine, and I can press the plus and minus key to make that satin stitch narrower. But the Presto has an amazing feature. This little knob up here is the top speed control. I can change that to change the width of my zigzag stitch. And I can do it, it's like a touch, it's like a feel. Now it takes a little bit of practice to get the feel of where it changes it to, but I'm not stopping every time and touching my screen. I can do it on the fly as I'm stitching, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to touch this button right here, and that's going to change the slider up here to automatically change the width of my zigzag. So right now it's to the right, it's the max. I'm going to put it down so it's the 3.5 that I like. Now when I come up to the nose of my little snowman here, I'm going to come on up here. As I get to the end, I'm going to have to decrease the width of the zigzag just a little bit to accommodate the point of his little nose. Let's see how good I do. Now I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller, boom. And you see how easy that was? I simply slid the little slider on the top and it changed the width of that zigzag, so I got a really cool carrot pointy point. Now I'm going to turn my work around to come to the other side, lift my presser foot, turn it around. Now one thing to remember, if the zigzag is going to swing to the other side. So there's a trick. I'm going to go needle up and gently move over my piece so I'm right where I want it to be, and in that way it's not swinging off into the air. So here I go. I'm going to start the point of my carrot nose, and I'm going to make it gently bigger until I'm up to that 3.5. Now I do the same thing when I'm turning a corner. I'm going to come all the way up to that corner with my standard zigzag width, stop on the outside edge, turn that corner. Now I want to make it narrow so that when I come out of that corner, it comes out so it kind of looks like it miters the corner. So let's take that down really low, slide my little slider. Now when I come out, it's going to be small, couple stitches. I get bigger and bigger and bigger, and boom, that's the world's most perfect corner. So it takes a little bit of practice. You can use the slider. I could have also stopped in between swings of the needle and touched my screen to change the width of that zigzag, which is pretty cool. So let me finish off my nose really fast, and I want to show you some other fun stuff. Come on into the edge, stop on the outside, turn it, make it small, make it big, use the scissors, voila, snowman nose. Now there's a ton of decorative stitches on the Presto too, because it's an electronic machine. Because it's an electronic machine, you have the option of having a different kind of a stitch than you would with a mechanical machine. On a mechanical machine, it has limitations. So there's some stitches on this that, for example, there is an uneven zigzag. We've done our satin stitch here, but I love this uneven zigzag. Well, let me show you. I've done this quilt, and do you see the stem coming on down here? Do you see how one side is dark and one side is light? Well, I have a stitch for that. It has a raggedy edge, so one side of the stem I stitched with that raggedy edge that's in darker color, and the other side I stitched with a lighter color. So that stitch on the Presto, that's stitch number 24 in the land of ferns. So fun, fun, fun. Now, on the Presto, because it's an electronic machine, I can also make choices. I can have just a single stitch if I want. So let me change back to white, and I want to show you something that's really neat for my snowman, because I need snow, right? I have snowmen coming down. I need snow. Well, what I can do on the Presto too is I can take any one single element of a decorative stitch and tell the machine to stitch just one of them. Also, after I have it stitched just one, I can have it lock that stitch in place and clip the thread at the same time. It's super convenient. So I'm going to thread with white, and I want to show you how to make snow on the Presto too. Now, I'm going to turn off that slider feature just by touching the button, and then that turns it off. Now, on the screen, on the lid of the machine, I can see that stitch number 5 in the land of ferns, so I touch fern 05, brings up a star stitch, and it looks just like a snowflake to me, but I want just one. So I'm going to touch the button that's one heart or 2 hearts, and that's going to tell the machine I want to stitch just one. Now, I want the machine to reinforce that stitch and clip it. Absolutely. So I'm going to touch the reinforcement key and the scissor key. Now, watch the magic. I'm going to go exactly where I want. You see, I've already done some other snows. Lower my presser foot, and I am going to be a princess. I'm going to unplug my presser foot again. That's what I was doing before you came. Now, all I have to do, press the button, and you can see I'm sewing without actually looking at the machine. It's doing all the work. It's stitching one single snowflake, it's reinforcing it, and it's clipping the thread for me. Oh my goodness, that's pretty cool. I have a lot of snow I want to do, so that's going to be super helpful. I go to wherever I want the next one, lower the presser foot, press the green button, and you can see I don't have to watch it every single bit of the time. That's pretty cool. So, with the features on the Presto 2, there's tons of stitches. Look in your handout. I talk about all kinds of different decorative stitches that you can use for applique, but I want to show you real fast that hand stitch applique, because that's another built-in stitch to the Presto 2. So let's put this aside, and let's get out my hand look applique piece. Here we go. Now, I'm going to change over to a thread. It's kind of a quandary of which thread you want. Do I want the green? Do I want the peach? I don't know. So I chose a gray thread that's kind of in the middle. Now for this, I'm not going to use that machine embroidery thread because I want it to kind of blend into the background. I don't really want it to stand out. So I'm going to take out my machine embroidery thread, put in my light gray, just regular cotton sewing thread, and then I'm going to pick my stitch and I'm going to modify it to see exactly what I want. You ever seen a machine thread so fast? Now, this stitch is stitch number 29, so I'm going to just simply touch the key, touch in 29, and the beauty of an electronic machine is it went exactly to that stitch and it set it up perfectly for me. Now, I may like the way it's set up. What this stitch is going to do is it's going to stitch along the side. It's going to stitch along the side, and every once in a while it's going to swing just a little bit over and look like I hand caught that with a hand sewing needle. So I'm going to position my fabric underneath the foot. I think that's going to be a big enough swing. Now, I want to change it back to doing to take off the reinforcement in the scissors because I'm not doing my snow anymore. Just a touch of a button. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We're going to stitch along and swing. You see how that open toe foot really helps me see exactly where I'm going? My goal is to stitch right down along that folded under edge and just swing over and catch that fabric with just that little swing of the needle. Now I can adjust that. Say I have a hard time catching that. I can make that swing of the needle wider, and I can make the space between my stitches, my stitch length, I can make that a little bit longer as well. So it's pretty simple. It's a built-in stitch. You simply select it and you're good to go. And you can see it rock and rolls pretty fast. A lot faster than hand sewing. So let's see how good I did. Wow, that looks pretty cool. I think maybe I should have gone with a green thread, but live and learn. So that's hand look sewing. It's a simple selection of a stitch. You have all kinds of cool stitches on the Baby Lock Presto to choose from. I suggest you sew out some on a scrap piece of fabric because you have a lot to choose from. Now here's another hint that's in your handout. This machine also does alphanumeric characters. In other words, it does letters and numbers. Now, there's a lot of decorative stitches on the machine, but think about it. Pick some of those letters and repeat them. A capital A might be shark teeth. Remember, you're telling a story. An O might be the eye of a creature. Oh my gosh, eyes repeated might be the top of a crown. You have tons of stitches to explore on your machine. So, have fun with machine applique. Don't forget, try it, download your handout, try the snowman first, then move on to your unicorn because I think you're going to enjoy machine applique. Now I'm going to send it over to George. He's going to tell you a little bit more about the Presto 2. It's a great electronic machine. Remember, you set it and you're ready to go and you match every time you sew. Take it away, George.
Thanks, Kathy. That was an incredible presentation. Don't forget to click on the link to download the outline for today's presentation. Now, the Baby Lock Presto 2 is one of our most popular machines. It offers high quality features at a very affordable price. The 7-point feed system really handles the fabric from denim to sheer, even elastic. Plus, it's so easy to access all 100 of these stitches. These stitches are quilting stitches, satin stitches, decorative, utility stitches. It even has 7 one-step buttonholes as well as built-in alphabets. So you see, this has plenty of features. Now, the Baby Lock Presto 2 has a regular retail price of $1,299, but right now it's on sale for $699, as well as we are offering free shipping across the country. But wait, there's more. For the first few that orders, you'll get this bonus that includes a set of rose gold scissors, all kinds of Class A needles, and some different thread, both utility and decorative thread. This has a value well over $150 and it's included free while supplies last. So don't wait, click on the link to order. You can call us at 1-800-865-9664 or email me at moreso@aol.com. Bye for now.